What's up, good people? What's up, good people? It's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder, coming to you on this Work For It Wednesday. It's Work For It Wednesday, and y'all know what we've been doing all this week. We've been talking about the 8 principles of a MVP business, and so far we've dealt with God, prayer, faith, family. God, faith, God, prayer, faith, and family. Those have been the first 4 principles that we've dealt with. And today we're going to deal with education and we're going to deal with sacrifice. Well, what does that mean, dealing with education and sacrifice? So let's start with education first. Education is important because it's the foundation of any and everything that we do. Understand that. I think that when people think about education, they only think about formal education, pre-K, elementary, middle, high school, college, master's, PhD. That's formal education. But no one really talks about the informal education is just as important, that we have to have. There's going to be education in any and everything that we do. You've got to be able to learn things. You've got to be able to understand things. You've got to be able to, as we've been talking about this year, master. You have to be able to master something, and the only way that you master something is to master something means you're educated on it. To be seen as an expert, you have to study something. They said it takes 10,000 hours for you to be able to be a master something, to be an expert at something. You got to put in the work. You got to do the work educationally, and formal education isn't for everyone, but informal education is for everyone. You're gonna have to learn. I don't care if you're on a job, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to learn in some capacity. You have to be educated. I don't care if it's on learning about a computer, learning about a phone, this very device that I'm on. You have to learn how. You have to have learned how to use it. There's certain ways that you have to know what the phone does, what the computer does, what all of these things do. So you're getting educated. You have to get educated. And I was having a conversation the other day, or I was listening to a show the other day, Sunday I believe it was, 60 Minutes in Black America, and they had some young students on there, and they were talking about, I don't think that you have to go to college to be educated, which is true. And I say that too. I would never tell anyone that you have to go to college, because college isn't for everyone. But education is for everyone. I'm going to say that again. Education is for everyone. You have to have the capacity to be able to learn. You have to have a skill set. And the only way that you gain a skill set is to educate yourself, or to be educated. So make sure, from any entrepreneur, and I've written, a couple of my book, well, one of my books, a Young and Gifted book, the next generation of entrepreneurship. When I talk with 40 entrepreneurs under the age of 40 who were not in music, sports, or entertainment, what I found in doing my research, prior to talking to these entrepreneurs, these young and gifted entrepreneurs, was doing my research on other entrepreneurs. And a lot of them, at least half of the entrepreneurs that I looked up did not complete college, but they were still educated. They had the ability and capacity to learn. They wanted to learn. They had the passion to learn, to be educated. So make sure, I don't care what level you're on, whether you are a line level employee, whether you are a CEO, president, CEO of company, management, supervisor, you are responsible for being educated, knowing a system. Even when I worked in the hospitality industry, I had to be educated on that particular hotel's software system that they operated under. You have to learn that. You had to be trained on that. That's education. So you're going to have to be educated. Education is the key to life and being successful. Doesn't matter how you look at it. You've got to be educated in some capacity. So how are you learning? What are you learning? That's that L in leader. Are you learning? What are you learning? What are you spending your time learning about? How are you learning? Whether it's through books, whether it's through YouTube, whether it's through a mentor, what are you getting educated on? How are you getting educated? Education doesn't mean necessarily going to college, but it does mean learning. You could have a trade, a plumber, an electrician. You know, when people think about education, they'll be like doctors and lawyers and all of those that go to universities in order to be able to learn or whatever. But plumbers have to learn. They have to be certified. Electricians have to be certified. Architects have to be educated. You have to be educated in order to be able to do the things that you want to do, even if it's just where you may be reading a certain number of books. What books are you reading? But even that, you're still going to need the practical experience that goes along with the reading, because you can learn something. You could be educated on something, yourself, but they're going to be things that you don't know, the little intricacies of about whatever it is that you're learning, that if you aren't with someone who can guide you or show you, someone who may be further educated than you, that can show you about that industry, or that particular, let's say, like I said, with a plumber that's been around 20, 30 years versus somebody who's been around, let's say 5, 6 years, is going to know more about plumbing than the one who hasn't been there as long, because he's been there, done that. Same thing in relationships, in marriage. Those people who have been married longer can tell you those that have only been married a few years, because they haven't experienced the same things. And I always remember having this conversation with Mr. Stan. He was an older gentleman. I mean, and Mr. Stan was when we were together working at the retail store. He was about in his mid 80s at that time, I believe it was late 70s, early 80s, maybe. But him and his wife at that time had been married 65 years. And I remember us having the conversation. I said, Mr. Stan, I said, you've you've been through everything. I mean, you and your wife have experienced everything in 65 years. And versus someone who had only been married 10 years. Who do you think I'm going to listen to? But I was getting an education on relationships, enduring. And same thing with someone who has been in a particular industry for X amount of years, who has been where it is that you might be trying to go. And I know that's what I do. I try to be around educated folks who know more than me, who've experienced more than me. That way I don't have to bump my head against the wall, because that's what they did, and that's what I try to do with the education. I try to those things that I've learned, I try to pass on to others who are coming along, because it's my responsibility to try and educate them so that they don't have to go through a lot of the things that I've gone through. But that's what education will do for you. Education will, like I said, formal, informal, you're going to need education. It's a must have. There's not one person, not one, that has been successful, that is wealthy, rich, whatever you want to call it, that has not had some form of education. You can't do it. So you want to make sure that you are educated on whatever it is that you're doing. Like I said, especially in business, even in relationships, even in our, relationships, our friendships, our family, there's still, we have to learn. We have to be educated on things. And if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, if you're going to be a successful manager, if you're going to be a successful supervisor, even a successful line level employee, you've got to be educated. Even like when I worked in the hospitality industry, and I was over the front desk, whether it was over the front desk or whether over housekeeping, there were things that I always had to learn. There were things that I could learn from the housekeepers, from the front desk agents, because there were things that I studied. And there were things that they knew that I might not necessarily know because they were doing it every day. They knew what it was that they were doing, especially those that have been doing it for a number of years. And that's why I was always adamant about learning, about knowing what it is that they were doing, because I wanted to make sure that I knew what they were doing and that they were doing it correctly. And the only way that you get to that mastery is by learning and being open to learning. So that's the educational piece. The second piece is sacrifice. This is the principle number 6. Is sacrifice. You are going to have to sacrifice. It's a word. Get used to it. Know it. Embrace it. It is a part of who we are. We're going to have to sacrifice in some capacity. I don't care if it's in your personal life or if it's in your professional life. Sacrifice is a part of who we are. And I have this acronym for BOSS, which is someone. A boss is someone who builds, organizes, shifts, and sacrifice. In order to be great, in order to be successful, you're going to have to sacrifice. I remember I read, and I've said this before about Kobe Bryant, and I did not like him when he was playing, because I thought he was selfish. I thought he had this huge ego, all of these things. But after he retired and he was doing more interviews, I gained so much more respect for him, in listening to him. And to understand what he was talking about when he was talking about he wanted to go down in history as one of the greatest NBA players of all time, which he has. But that came with sacrifice. It came with sacrifice because he didn't get the opportunity to be able to spend as much time with his family as he wanted to, which is one of the principles that we talked about. That was a sacrifice. That was a sacrifice for him. He knew that if he was going to be able to be great at what he did, it was going to take time away from his family. And that's what he was willing to do. Tom Brady has done it. Those who are great, I promise you, they will tell you that there comes sacrifice with it. Magic Johnson, sacrifice. All of those that have been great at what they do, they are consumed by it. They work so hard at what they do that there has to come, even if it's your body that gets sacrificed. Football players all the time, there comes a sacrifice to play 20 years, 15 years in football, even basketball. Your body may be part of what has to, sacrifice because you put it through so much. So you have to be willing to sacrifice. If you're going to be great in whatever industry that you're in, whatever business that you have as an entrepreneur, or whatever job that you may have, it's going to come with sacrifice. You got to be willing to sacrifice. You can't be great without sacrifice. There is no greatness without sacrifice. So what are you willing to sacrifice? If that means you got to work, you got to work when you don't want to work, that's what it is. This is work for it Wednesday. You've got to be willing to work for it. And willing to work for it means you got to sacrifice. Even someone that may want to lose weight, that comes with sacrifice. If you want to be great, you've got to be willing to sacrifice. So think about that today. Think about that this week. I want you to think about, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to get educated on? What are you willing to learn? The smartest person in the room knows that they don't know everything. What are you willing to learn? How are you willing to educate yourself? What are you willing to educate yourself on? And then two, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to be able to do it? If you want to be great, you got to be willing to sacrifice. If you want to be great, you got to be willing to be educated. I'm going to say that again for you. If you're willing to be great, you got to be willing to be educated. And if you're willing to be great, you got to be willing to sacrifice. So what are you willing to sacrifice on this Work For It Wednesday? It's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. We got 2 more left, y'all. 2 more principles of the 8 that make an MVP business. We're giving you the foundation. Like I told you, these principles, I want you to write them down. I want you to have them all year long. Keep them ingrained in you. Like I said, put them on your mirror, bathroom mirror. Put them on your refrigerator door. Put them on your bedroom door so that you see them every single day. The principles of Kwanzaa, these 8 principles of an MVP business. I promise you, you're going to be better by the end of the year than you were at the beginning of the year if you keep these principles deep inside you. Don't just have them written down, but have them here. This is part of the education. You want to have me. I had the conversation yesterday about having core principles. When you have core principles that you stand on, you can withstand the storms that come. Because storms are coming. Storms are gonna come. But do you have foundational principles to be able to stand on, to take your bit, to that your business can survive, that your personal life can survive, all of them. So that's it. I'm gone, y'all. Have a great day. Want you to work for Wednesday. Don't forget, work for Wednesday. Put that work in today. Make sure you get educated. Make sure you're willing to sacrifice. It's your boy, Dr. Leroy McKenzie Jr., the Impact Builder. We'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Have a great day.